Shout out to St. Thomas the Apostle.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Carissa.
And we're
Set on Sainthood. We have been on an epic adventure to find answers to life's greatest questions.
And though the struggle is so real,
when you're on an adventure with Christ, it's all worth it.
please join us in the universal call to be
Set on Sainthood.
Today we're going to do the Seven Churches Pilgrimage, which was made, I suppose you could say, by St. Philip Neri. The very first stop on our trip is St. Peter's Basilica.
It's a bit of an obvious place to start, as it is the seat of the Catholic Church in the entire world. It is a bit far out of the way, but then the rest of the seven churches, they all circle around the city of Rome.
Second stop on the Seven Churches Pilgrimage is St. Mary Major, or Santa Maria Maggiore. And wow, it was amazing to visit this place. There was a relic we had not heard of here, and it's right there. Do you see it? What could that be? It is the wood from the crib of the Nativity. How cool is that? Of course they're going to name this place after Mary.
We were actually really blessed because this section was closed off, but then later while we were there, they opened it. So we actually got to go down much closer and pray there at the wood of the crib of the Nativity, where Jesus actually laid when he was born.
And you can check out this episode in the top right-hand corner to see what the rest of the Nativity is like. From there, there's a little bit of a walk, and by a little I mean a lot, to the third stop, which is St. Lawrence, the Basilica. It's very different, as you can tell. This pilgrimage actually helped to bring people to this church, which is also the entry to a set of crypts. And there's a gigantic cemetery right behind this basilica, which is kind of amazing. But right underneath the church is the bodies of 3 different martyrs from the early church. The chief most of them is the martyr deacon Lawrence, who we have a good friend who has a devotion to. So we definitely had to stop by and check it out. And we were super surprised that the icon of St. Lawrence also looks a lot like that friend.
You might know St. Lawrence as the patron saint of grills. It's kind of random because I'm pretty sure they didn't have barbecues back in the day, but it's sad actually because he was martyred this way by basically being grilled, and he made a joke actually in the process, and he said, "Okay, I think I'm done on this side. You can flip me over."
St. Lawrence is also special because he was given the true chalice which Peter had brought from the Holy Land to take into his safekeeping.
Our fourth stop on the Seven Churches pilgrimage is the Holy Cross of Jerusalem Basilica. This was actually one of my favorite churches in Rome because it has an entire treasure trove of relics that were all brought back from the Holy Land to Rome by Saint Helena. She's like the Indiana Jones of the Catholic Church. It's so cool. So this church was intended to house these relics that you can see here. On the top left is St. Thomas's finger, the one he stuck in Jesus' side and declared, "My Lord and my God." You'll also see thorns from the crown of thorns, the inscription that hung above the cross, nails from the true cross, and also these really big fragments of the true cross.
Next, we have St. John Lateran. And I've always wondered, who is St. John Lateran? It's actually talking about St. John the Baptist. So there are holy doors, we're looking at some right now, at pretty much every single one of the stops on the 7 churches pilgrimage, which usually each diocese can only have 3. Maybe there are more dioceses in Rome. I don't know. But wow, it was amazing. It definitely had a dedication to the 12 apostles, which we appreciate. But up towards the front, we're going to come to a pretty amazing structure that actually holds the relics of St. John the Baptist right there up above the altar, which is really kind of cool. I hadn't seen much like that before.
All of these churches were so ornate, very different styles, but very, very incredible. So it makes sense why they were all put together in this 7 churches pilgrimage. Just across the street from this church is what's called the Sancta Scala, the holy steps that were brought back by St. Helena from the Holy Land. These are the steps that Jesus climbed up to the Praetorium when he was being condemned.
All the way across town, we've got St. Paul's outside the walls. It sounds pretty good in English, so we're not going to even try to translate that one. Beautiful gardens. We actually walked all the way around the walls of St. Paul's outside the walls.
Which we wouldn't recommend.
But wow, very incredible. Lots of visitors there that day, of course, because we went on Wednesday of Holy Week, the classic day to do the 7 churches pilgrimage. This too had holy doors, and wow, look at those colonnades. St. Paul outside the walls is also the home of the skulls of Saints Peter and Paul, which are right up there. Pretty amazing. And right beneath that, above the altar reliquary and the altar itself, is the tomb of St. Paul. How amazing is that? Such greatest saint here in Rome, and the chains that shackled him while he was imprisoned in Rome.
The last stop on the 7 churches pilgrimage is St. Sebastian's Basilica. It was very small compared to the others, but it has the tomb of St. Sebastian. And what you can see here are other relics, and also the footprints there are traditionally known as the spot where St. Peter basically stopped in his tracks when he was headed out of Rome, but then he saw a vision of Jesus and who turned him right back around, and he went to be martyred in Rome. 7 churches pilgrimage was very, very long, very fruitful though. We prayed the entire rosary along the way, and now you know what it's like on the 7 churches pilgrimage.
Enjoy your next adventure.